Just giving everyone kind of a minute to get to the main stage. But good morning, everyone, and welcome to Carrie Mulrooney's Manulife Chamber Academy. My name's Hannah Kelly, and I'm the events coordinator at the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce. Before we get started today, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we live and work on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples as we seek a renewed relationship based on the foundation of mutual understanding. As we begin, I would like to thank our sponsors of this morning's event. Please join me in thanking our title sponsor, Manulife. Without your support, we would not be able to put on events like these. To help us thank Manulife, please put a thumbs up or a thank you in the chat for our fantastic sponsor. Since this is a brand new platform for you all, we have some general housekeeping tips and tricks. Please note that in the chat on the right-hand side, there will also be polls that will be available throughout Carrie's presentation, so be aware of the red dot which indicates a new chat or poll. Afterwards, Carrie will be available for a moderated Q&A session. Please add some questions in the chat throughout the presentation and they will be answered live. Following the Q&A, you're welcome to participate in a brainstorming group networking session. You can find that under the Sessions tab on the left-hand side. If you have any questions about the platform, you may email a chamber representative or use the People tab on the right-hand side and send a direct message to myself or Carolyn Marsh. A survey will also be sent after the event. I will now introduce you to today's speaker, Carrie Mulrooney, Director of Mulrooney Associates and founder of GnarlyBooks.ca. Having built and sold her own nationally awarded bookkeeping and accounting practice, Carrie can directly relate to small business in many stages of its growth. With more than 20 years in the industry, Carrie has a wealth of knowledge and expertise, offering a diverse perspective on traditional and virtual business operations. Carrie is an awarded volunteer and relationship builder with a passion of helping and bringing businesses together. In 2018, Carrie was recognized as one of North America's top 50 cloud accountants and awarded as a top 10 Canadian bookkeeper influencer. Carrie lives in Kitchener, Ontario with her husband, Sean, and their two youngest children. However, coastal waters always draw them to Canada's eastern shorelines in the summer. Her presentation will cover how to grow your business without getting lost in the numbers. Please help me welcome Carrie this morning.
Thank you, Hannah, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, Chamber, for having me today. It's certainly an honor to be able to speak to this academy. I've been an active member of the Chamber for, I would say, probably about 8+ years now, and been very involved in lots of volunteering, facilitating peer-to-peer groups, as well as Business After 5. I did that for quite some time. So really enjoyed the Chamber. I've been a great advocate of it, so I'm really excited to be here today. As Hannah mentioned, I operated my own practice of Mulrooney Associates for close to 20 years. We did a rebrand in 2019 and started up a new company, a full cloud serviced bookkeeping and accounting company, so we could service nationally across Canada. Recently sold the company in January of 2020. In the last, I would say, 5 or so years, there's been a massive disruption with AI and technology, and I think a lot of you probably in your industries have experienced that as well. In our industry, it shifted many of the facets of the industry, and for small business, it just changed the operations in general. So I'm excited to share today my experiences and insights in spending less and saving more for your business. So to get started, we're going to take a poll this morning, and Hannah should have those up shortly, just to get to know everybody a little bit better, because we're not doing like a formal stand-up presentation where we can introduce ourselves. So if you just want to take just a few minutes, or a few seconds actually, to answer those polls, that would be great. All right, so we'll get back to business here. So today we're going to focus on spending less time and saving more time, and spending less money and saving more money. So some of you in your businesses may already be in business and possibly for some time, or some of you might be in startup or the setup stage of the business. So I just want to stress how important it is getting things started off on the right foot and correctly. We've seen many businesses not do that, and it can cost a lot of money and it can cost a lot of time in fixing it. We've seen companies and corporations that, or incorporated online, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those are great options and time and money savers. However, sometimes if you don't, have it done legally and properly, then things can get missed, like share issuance and minute books and things like that. And we've also seen clients who have incorporated incorrectly, whether it be provincially or federally, that they should have been. So there's definitely, we've seen corrections have to happen with lawyers where they've spent more money and more time getting that fixed after the fact. Another thing is industry license is super important. If you are, like, let's say a massage therapist, or you are a CPA, there's lots of licenses that typically those industries will hold. And it's really important to make sure you have your licenses in place. Heavy penalties and fines can happen for that, which cost, and as well as it could potentially have a stop in your business or a halt in your business. So maybe they'll prevent you from operating for a period of time until you get things sorted out. So there could be a loss of business there. When it comes to the government, CRA, any of you who've registered your businesses, I'm sure you have in some way, whether you have HST or payroll or in a corporation, you have a 9-digit business number. So those are super important to get. HST and payroll particularly, as those are trust amounts, and trust amounts are amounts that employers will deduct or charge, like HST, or deduct source deductions from payroll. And those amounts are the responsibility of the business owner personally. So, it's not uncommon for me to have had a conversation in the past where a client might say, well, I might just declare bankruptcy then, and I don't have to pay those amounts, and because maybe they were behind or they're in some trouble with CRA. And actually, those amounts you do have to pay if they're personally owed. And just keep in mind that any of those trust amounts is money that you've collected on the government's behalf. So they'll definitely want it and come and get it. So, registering, as I mentioned, and setting up your business is super important right from the start, because you don't want to be caught spending more time and frustration and interest and penalties and fines for not doing that correctly. So we're going to do another poll here. So do you use any third-party services or subcontractors? So Hannah should have that up there shortly. Just take a second to do that. Okay. So in your business, one of the things that is really important is to know when to ask for help. We all sign up to do what we love every day and be open, and we need to be open to change and taking calculated risks. Don't be afraid to hire a subcontractor or a third party for any services that you need. For example, maybe it might be marketing or bookkeeping. Typically at the beginning of any business starting up, some people don't have a lot of money to be able to spend on those extra services, so they tend to try to do them themselves. You want to spend time on building and growing your business and doing those things that you love, like I mentioned. And there is a significant cost in not doing things right, not doing things properly. We've seen it in the past where, a client has come in, or a potential client, and they incorporated or they started up their business, and let's say for the last year or 2 years they've decided that they couldn't afford a bookkeeper every month or an accountant, so they did their own bookkeeping, their own tax work. And many times we've seen a lot of errors and mistakes, and if they would have paid for the services to have it done correctly in the first place by that trusted, third party or subcontractor, they wouldn't have, now they're not spending a lot of money trying to fix it up. And we've seen clients who have gotten themselves into issues with HST and owing for payroll source deductions because they didn't understand what they were doing. And the bookkeeping was done incorrectly. And for the amount that they would have paid, our service, for example, was way less than what they ended up paying to have everything fixed and corrected after the fact. So give some real consideration to that. And maybe it might be where you say, okay, I'll do a piece of things and maybe they can do other parts. And, if you understand and something really well, definitely, take a stab at it. But you know what? You need to be able to mitigate those costs and measure the results. So if you're finding that, it's definitely, yes, now I can spend lots of time focusing and marketing my business and going out and doing business development and bringing in more business. And I have this trusted accountant or bookkeeper or marketing company looking after my social media and things like that, then definitely, do that. It's peace of mind. Put your head on your pillow at night and sleep well knowing that your stuff is definitely well looked after. Okay, so I believe we have another poll coming up here. So the next poll is, do you have employees? So if everybody can just take a second and answer that poll, that'd be great. Okay, so do you have employees? So employees, it's interesting. One of the things that I learned and experienced over time is when you hire an employee, you typically hire them for a particular role. When you hire them for their role, they do their role. Typically, most employers and employers enforce that, and employees do it. But employees can be helpful in a lot of other ways, and not just their role. One of the things that you can do, and I learned it with time, was, I remember sitting at my desk and looking at piles and going, I wish I didn't have to do that anymore. Like, I got bigger, more important things to do here, building the business and working with clients and helping them and doing what I love. And so, I gave some thought to, okay, I've got all these wonderful people out there. They do their job really well. Who could I give these to? And be open to give your team members challenges and special tasks to free up your time. Employees, most like to, do special things and projects and show their employer how great they could do and things like that. So, it's always something to keep in mind. Using your internal resources is super important. And potentially maybe instead of a third party, a service. Like, for example, we had an employee who came on as a bookkeeper who worked for us for about a year. And we had a third party service for our IT. And this employee that had come on board and was a bookkeeper was really, really technically smart and knew a lot about IT, like really understood how systems worked and things like that. He just had a real knack for it, and I think just a natural talent. And with our third-party service we were using, we were paying quite a bit of money per month, and we weren't seeing the value. There was things that were supposed to be done that weren't done. We had a lot of downtime because waiting for them to reply and come back to us and things like that. So what we did, and it's super important, and I might want to stress this in our business, is as we grew the business and converted to our cloud model, it was really important that we had no downtime, because if we had downtime, we couldn't work. And so anyway, so we reassigned and reorganized and restructured some roles internally to be able to account for this. So this person that was our bookkeeper took on part of his role, became IT. And then we moved some things around, which really worked out well. So we saved a lot of time, and we saved a lot of money. We were probably saving about $1,200 a month in IT costs from just being able to utilize what internal talents we had. And it doesn't have to be IT. It can be anything. It could be, marketing, social media. It could be, business development, anything like that. So, really look at your team and say, hey, like, who's got the drive and who wants to do things. And I see this person really likes to go to business after 5 events, and they like to go to CYPs and things like that. And maybe that's an opportunity for a lot of, business development and things like that. So anyways, just taking a real good look at what you have and internally can save a lot of time, hiring and downtime and things like that, and then cost within your business. One of the things that I feel really important is for your employees to understand, or your team to understand, your vision and why you're doing what you're doing and where you want to go with your business. You don't have to tell them all the inside track about your business, but have those conversations and get them thinking. For example, we had a different bookkeeper who was very, very good at bookkeeping, was very technical in the sense of learning accounting applications and integrations and things like that. And he took a real liking to it. So we were going full cloud. Our whole firm was moving to full cloud. We were converting all of our clients, and we were running into a scenario where we couldn't have every employee trying to do these conversions. We almost needed to segregate it and have one person do it. So, and this person understood the vision and understood the why and knew where we were going. So very much like our person who became partially IT, we restructured and changed a role. We created an implementation specialist for cloud conversions and things like that, which worked really well. So again, reorganized, reassigned, and saving time on trying to find somebody, and a lot of money on trying to probably hiring a consultant who probably would have charged us $100,000 to do the conversion we did, but we were able to utilize an employee internally and just move some things around. So that worked out really well. So fostering and capitalizing on the talents of your team is pretty much what I'm getting at there, is just, recognizing who may be able to do what and who can help you with what. And then remote operations, working from home, having no office space, no overhead. I mean, that's a time, but also a significant cost savings. Rent can be really costly. We've seen clients pay anywhere between $30,000 up to $100,000+ a year, depending on their profession and where they need to be. And I mean, not everybody can go remote. And, but there may be things that you may be able to do and have, certain team members and things like that. We were able to cut down, we had no more travel. We were able to cut down costs on vehicles and things like that. So that was definitely a great time savings for us. And once we went full remote about 4 months before we closed before we sold our company. And after that, we were able to list our building that we had purchased about 7 years ago and put that for sale. So, I mean, for example, our property taxes alone were over $10,000 a year. So there's a significant cost if you can go that route. And I think a lot of people a lot of companies, especially with this COVID now, are leaning in that direction if they can. Okay, so next we have another poll. And the poll is, are you using any cloud automated applications? So just take a few seconds to answer that question. Okay, so cloud and automated applications. So automation, AI technology is huge right now. I think everybody, like I mentioned, in their industry is experiencing the changes and the efficiencies in their business. And there's efficiencies from a cost standpoint and from a timing standpoint. One of the great things that we discovered in the changes that we made, and I think this can relate to a lot of small businesses in their industry, is real-time data. If you've got automation and AI happening, you've got real-time data. So it can be, instead of using the desktop applications, now you're using apps that you can access anytime, like on your phone, even from your tablet, on the road when you're traveling and things like that. So accessible anytime, anyhow, anywhere. And it really allows you to know what's happening with your business. So instead of spending time on trying to find information and using all different desktop applications and having potential downtime and things like that, now you're able to get the information you need right at your fingertips. So that's really a time saver, because you don't have to travel into the office to get it. You don't have to, email your administrator or anybody like that to get that information to you and waiting for time. So it's definitely a time savings from that standpoint. Multiple user access is great, because we used to spend a lot of time downloading patches and updates for our technology and our desktop systems and things like that. And now, with the multi-user, and sometimes we'd only have so many users, or because it was really costly to add 3 more. So we'd have people sharing things, or you may be doing the same thing. So, definitely the multi-user access is nice, because everybody can just access at any time. Workflow management. This is a big one. So and I'll just give you an example for us in our workflow management. It allowed us, it had some great, so we switched to an application that had some great options for integration into it. And there's lots of applications, workflow management applications out there that you can use. And you can integrate, and use Zapier to get information from one system to another. It really saves on task inputting and updating systems and tracking. Like, for example, we used to do our proposals in a Word document, and we'd email it to the client and things like that. And then we get it back, and then we'd print it out and we give it to one of our account specialists and say, okay, can you enter this into the workflow system? And they'd spend time updating and creating jobs and creating tasks and things like that. Well, now, for example, one of the things that we were able to do is to take our proposal system, which was automated, and zap it into the workflow management system. So all those jobs and tasks automatically were created right in that system, which was great. So it eliminated that person entering all that data in and time, just spending time on all that stuff. And if you, depending on the workflow system you get, these days they come at a very reasonable cost. You used to pay annually for, a whole year subscription and be locked into it. Now, with a lot of these workflow management systems, you can just pay like a monthly subscription. So with those monthly subscriptions, they're typically a lot less cost than a traditional desktop software or exclusive software. So if you can find, a workflow management or a monthly subscription system or application that works well for your business, it's quite often and likely that you're going to be able to save quite a bit of money. And you're only paying for, how many people you're using. So sometimes, these systems or applications might have been, the desktop might say up to 10 users and you have to pay X, but you might only have 3 users or 5 users. So with the monthly subscriptions, you typically just pay per user with that. Client and employee portal access is great. We were utilizing that within our company as well. And I know a lot of companies that are using, portals for their employees, for payroll and things like that, and for their clients to be able to access reports and things like that. It saves a lot of time internally of emails to back and forth to the client, attaching documents. It's more secure, and it just allows for, even with the employee portal, it allows the employee to be able to go in, update their information. So there's some significant time savings there, especially for potentially for your HR department, things like that, where, you're not being bogged down with, can you change my banking information? Can you update my address and things like that? So that's a real time savings, I think, internally from an administration standpoint. There is a lot of cost savings to clients, to customers, using automation. We found, depending on the industry that you're in, for example, we integrated an application that allowed our clients to load their documents into a specific portal that integrated right into their bookkeeping or accounting system. So that saved our clients a lot of time, actually driving to our office, dropping off the documents, and not just that, but also sometimes when they're working, they couldn't come between the hours of 8:30 and 5 because maybe that's when they worked, and they were maybe, construction workers, they're on site, they don't have time to be running around and doing that during the day. So it allows to be able to upload those documents at any time. So it could be midnight, it could be any time of the day that they're doing these things. All right, so proposals and pricing. So this is an interesting one. I mentioned before about our proposal system. So I changed to a different pricing structure about 6 years ago, where I implemented a value pricing model within our firm. And I was spending a lot of time creating these proposals and putting them together because I didn't have a proper automated system. So I would create it in Word, I would email it to the client, put all these explanations in, wait for the client to sign back. Oh, then they didn't sign the right spot. Then I had to send it back. And there were so many things. So I was probably spending every time I would do a proposal, probably about an hour to an hour and a half putting it together for the client. When I switched to the automated proposal system that was somewhat designed for our industry, I was able to do those proposals per client in about 10 minutes. So sometimes I would be spending, if I had 4 or 5 proposals lined up on my desk, I would have spent almost my whole day doing those. Once we switched to the new system, it only took me about an hour and a half a day if I had that many proposals to do. So it was definitely a time saver. I couldn't believe how efficient it was. And one of the great things about the proposal system that we put in place, like I mentioned, is we zapped it into all of our other applications and it integrated right into our accounting system. And it also, what it would do is it would actually invoice directly then, do recurring payments, and it would take the payment when received by the client and actually apply it. So there was no accounting to do. There was no bookkeeping to do from that end. So it was a wonderful thing because I realized how much time, once we started integrating these applications, using the technology, how much time I was saving and my team internally was saving. So definitely something you might want to look at for your business if you're doing proposals and quotations and things like that. So, and from a timing or from a cost standpoint for the proposal system, is very, very reasonable. We paid a monthly flat rate to get up to so many proposals on the system, and it was very reasonable for the amount of money I was spending on that, which was less than $200 a month. if I added up the time I was spending doing the proposals the other way, it didn't even compare. So definitely was, from a cost standpoint, definitely was the right answer. So cloud storage and IT. So the nice thing about the cloud storage and using the automation of that is that you don't have to have any expensive servers sitting on your rack, which costs money. Your internal IT costs come down because you don't have that maintenance of those anymore, and potentially no downtime. So we shifted to full cloud server about halfway through our conversion, and there was a monthly price for the service for the cloud storage, but when we added up what we had paid for the server, and at that time it was a very expensive server, so we did a financing through Dell for it, which there was interest on that and things like that. So by the time we looked at those costs, we could have cloud storage for 25 years compared to what we paid for our server. So definitely a cost savings from that standpoint. Virtual meetings, exactly what we're doing right now. So virtual meetings are awesome. Saves lots of time. So you don't have to drive to meetings. You don't have to go back and forth. You're saving money on your vehicle costs and things like that, wear and tear. So driving to and from meetings doesn't happen anymore. It makes it more efficient. You can get more done in your day. You don't have to spend that 30 minutes going to that appointment, trying to find where you're going, trying to get parking and things like that. So there's definitely a cost and a time savings from that angle. So I just wanted to share an example here of, and I know this is very formulated to me, but I just wanted to give you an example of how our integrations somewhat work. So we had QuickBooks Online as our hub, our main hub, and then we had HubDoc and Pluto and WagePoint that integrated in. So HubDoc was the system that allowed the clients to load up the documents, and then they would integrate into QBO. And then we used Pluto was a payroll management system, which actually saved our clients quite a bit of time, not writing checks and cost. And also, if they were doing EMTs, the system was only 50 cents a transaction. So it worked out really well from a cost and a timing standpoint. WagePoint, we used WagePoint for our payroll. And that integrated right into QuickBooks Online as well. And then we used other applications like, for example, Expensify, other invoicing applications and so on to save time and money for our clients. One example I'm going to give you, just to give you an example on how much money and time this saved us on our end, is when we implemented WagePoint in our company for all of our clients that we were doing payroll for. We were using a desktop system. We were doing things very manually. We were emailing the clients like their pay stubs, and which you can't do anymore, and source deduction payments and things like that. We were pulling and pushing funds from the client into our trust accounts, pushing it back out to the government and things like that. A lot of time, a lot of reconciling, a lot of work. WagePoint application, it does it all for you. So basically, all our team does now is deals with any payroll, concerns or questions, but it's mostly just processing. So basically, taking the hours, and the hours are already recorded in an automated system. They load in, and the source deductions are paid. All the government remittances are done automatically. All the employees get paid direct deposit. The employees have their own portal to go into, make any changes to their personal information. We integrated it. It took us 3 months to do our full integration of all of our clients. And we started out with 2 full-time. Before we did this, we had 2 full-time payroll specialists with the potential of maybe needing some extra assistance. Within 2 months of integrating WagePoint, we were down to 3/4 time with 1 payroll specialist. So we ended up having to, unfortunately, let go of one of our payroll specialists who was full-time. The other person gained a lot of capacity, and we saved ourselves in wages about $65,000 a year. And our cost to the provider was only about $25,000 at the time. So there was a significant savings there. So, well, first of all, it increased a lot of capacity, which was great. So we could bring on more and pay less. So cost savings, time savings from both areas. And, we were in need of hiring another specialist for something else. So we were able to use those wages and, it was no extra cost to the business. So it worked out really well. Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about all the details in this slide, but this is just more information for you. There's tons of grants and things that you can take advantage for your business to add capital and things like that. So there's professional grant writing companies out there that can look after these services for you if you need it. They know the jargon. They've done these. They're professionals at it. Their success rates in getting these grants are usually typically quite high. And again, if we go down to the bottom of this slide, you can see like cooperative education tax credits and things like that. The Red Seal Apprentice, those are credits and things that if you're dealing with the right professional in your business, and this is where I'm going to go back to the asking for help, you can save yourself a lot of time trying to figure these things out and cost, because they know about these grants. They know about these credits that you can take advantage. For example, the co-op education tax credit can give you up to $3,000 in corporate tax savings if you had a co-op student. Tax credits, the Red Seal Apprentice, same thing for somebody who's not an incorporated company, can take advantage of those credits and have a significant tax savings. So don't be afraid to reach out to find out what's available. A lot of these places here are just resources that you get information from. So definitely, look into these. They're great. I know a lot of businesses that did really well taking advantage of these and just having, it might cost somebody, it might cost you a little bit to have somebody do it for you, especially the grant writing. Typically, depending on what kind of grant it is, you might be able to get a $20,000 grant and maybe they take a 10% fee to do it for you. So, if it's found money and you're getting the money, what's the $2,000? It's worth paying somebody professionally to do it. And this goes the same for Shred. A lot of you in your business might be taking advantage of this or have. My experience with clients that have tried to do it on their own is don't do it on your own. Try to find a professional or somebody who does these document preparations and claims. We've seen clients spend so much time and money internally with their staff trying to do these. And then sometimes the results just don't even turn out to be anything. CRA comes back, audits, and says, no, you didn't do it correctly, or we don't see that you have a case here. Really, really do take some consideration into asking help for those kinds of applications and claims. It can definitely save a lot of time and money for you. Okay, and last but not least, my biggest thing, because I'm such a builder in business and a connector, is get connected. Industry and community memberships, take advantage of them. You pay for them, and you know what? For the amount that you pay for your membership per year and the resources and all the other things that come along with it is far more exceeds what you pay for your membership if you had to pay that out or research or spend time doing those kinds of things. They have great benefits. A lot of times, like for example, the chamber has the Cowan benefits and all sorts of education things, exactly like what we're doing here today, at a very non-cost or very minimal cost. And volunteering and networking, build your brand, get lots of referrals. That will save you. I don't know how many times I've sat there and gone, oh, okay, I need this job done. Now I got to research and try to find somebody. I got to spend all this time, where it's like, no, actually, I know somebody at the chamber who does this, or no, I know somebody in my networking group. And even if they don't do it, they might know somebody who does it. So really take advantage of that. They can save you a lot of time and definitely a lot of cost. So that's it. Any questions?
All right. Thanks, Carrie, so much for everything. Just before we begin the Q&A, I just wanted to thank our title sponsor, Manulife, once again for supporting these events. And thank you everyone who was able to attend the event this morning. We're going to begin the live Q&A in a minute, but when that's over, you may also use the sessions tab on the left-hand side, and we're going to have kind of a group networking / brainstorming session with other attendees of the event. So feel free to check that out if you have the time. That'll kind of be over by about 10:30. So yeah, we'd love to see you there. But a couple of questions to start. So Carrie, if you were to recommend one book, what would that be and why?
Well, I think for myself, I just touched very briefly on this earlier in one of my comments about my pricing. I changed to a value pricing model. Implementing value pricing, I think, was one of the books that really helped me within my business. I got mentored by the author for 1 full year, but it really allowed me to learn how to, and even from a cost and a timing standpoint, saved me a lot of time doing things the way that I was doing it all on the back end instead of the front end. But it also, I saw significant revenue increases from it, which was amazing. So that, I think, I would say, if I'm going to recommend any book, and you are considering changing your pricing structure, or wanting to just to learn about it, definitely read it. It's a really good book. It's Implementing Value Pricing by Ronald Baker.
Okay, perfect. We just have a question from the chat. So if you were to provide one piece of advice to any business owner, what would that be?
Well, I would say go with your gut. And I know that sounds really simple, but it's one thing that I learned in my business. If it doesn't feel right, it's typically not right. So go with how you feel. Go with, if it feels great, go with it. If it doesn't feel right and it's not right, then make a different decision.
Perfect. So I know you touched on it a little bit, but what would you say the typical savings between desktop software and cloud applications would be from your experience?
So, I mean, that can really vary. It obviously depends on what you're using and the amount of users and things like that. We saw the cost savings to be more than 50% all around. Sometimes even maybe up to a third of the cost or quarter of the cost. For example, some of the desktop systems we were using for, one user would cost us $1,000 for the year. And then we'd implement the monthly subscription for the application, the cloud application of it, and it was like $25 a month. So, there are, not even sometimes $15 or $10 a month. So it does depend on what it is, but there's definitely a significant savings. And we were usually typically anywhere between, 50% or more in savings.
Perfect. So you were talking about a lot of stuff to do with the CRA, but how would you register for a payroll account with the government?
So with CRA, typically if you're incorporating your business, usually your business accounts are typically set up. Not everybody does payroll, but if you wanted to do payroll, once you have your business number, if you're incorporated, that number is your number for everything that you're doing. It just has a different extension on it. Like for some of you, you've seen maybe your HST or your payroll be the 9-digit number with a RT or an RP or an RC behind it. So that represents each of those different types of services. So payroll, HST, or corporate. So you can register your, if you're not registered for HST and you need to do that, then you can contact CRA directly, or you can go online and do the application. Yeah, it's fairly straightforward. Now, if you tell them, listen, I need an HST number, then then they can do that. And I recommend if you're going to be doing anything like payroll, or if you need to be charging HST on your services, set it up right away. We've seen too many clients come in after the fact where they were charging HST on invoices and weren't even registered with Revenue Canada. And what ended up happening is, we had to go back a year or 2 years. They didn't have the money anymore that they collected from the account. So they had a big debt to CRA, lots of interest and penalties for not even setting up an HST account and filing it. So it can get pretty nasty if it's not set up right from the start.
All right, perfect. Another question from the chat. So they said, hi, Carrie, you mentioned your team went remote, which is how a lot of businesses had to operate during this time. How long did it take you to get there, and how did you kind of implement that move to working remote?
Yeah, so we started our remote process. I mean, we had talked about it for quite some time and tried to figure out the best strategy for it. What we did was we phased it in. So we started in the spring of last year, and every month we phased it in. So let's say in April, each employee or team member would work a day at home, and then they're 4 days in the office. And then in May, then they do 2 days from home, 3 days in the office. And we wanted to give everybody the opportunity to, we didn't want to be like, okay, now as of tomorrow, you're working at home. We had a lot of things to work out, applications and, integrations and systems, and make sure that it's going to work. And also make sure that it's going to work for everybody. So, I had a couple scenarios where there was 2 team members, and I'd be in the office, but I knew they were supposed to be at home working, and they'd still come into the office, and I'd say, okay, why are you here? You're supposed to be, you're supposed to be at home. And they're like, I know, I don't know. I just don't know if I can, so, and actually, when we did the change, it wasn't the right fit for everybody. So some people decided to move on and wanted to be in an actual workplace model. So that was fine. You know what? It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think now probably more so people don't really have much of a choice. So I think that'll change a little bit. But
yeah, we have another question from the chat. So she said, you mentioned you sold your business. Are you still providing bookkeeping services?
So no, I'm just doing more consulting, and actually just started a new role. Actually, it's still in the industry, but I'm super excited about it. I'm doing it with my partner, Sean, and we're brokering the sales of accounting firms across Canada and in the US. So it's kind of fun, but I'm still transitioning, and I'm still very connected to Gnarly Books and the team there. So if anybody needs any bookkeeping or accounting advice, definitely, send me an email or chat with me later on, and I can get you connected if you need anybody there. So.
Oh, great. Okay, I don't see any other questions right now, but we will have the sessions open, should be ready in a second. So okay. If anyone wants to head over there, we can have multiple people on screen, and everybody can kind of check that out. But thanks again, Carrie, for joining us in this virtual space, and we really appreciate all your expertise and help on this topic. So yeah, thanks to everyone for coming out this morning, and thanks to Manulife again. We really appreciate the sponsorship as well. So
great.
Have a good
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.